Max Verstappen just did something no reigning Formula One world champion has done in decades. He stood in front of the media 24 hours after being called the benchmark for 2026 and absolutely destroyed the new regulations. Not fun. Anti-racing. Formula E on steroids. Those are his words, not ours. And then he dropped the real bomb. He's considering other racing series, Le Mans, endurance racing, anything where he can actually have fun. Because Formula One in 2026, it's not cutting it anymore. This isn't some midfield driver complaining about being slow. This isn't a bitter veteran on his way out. This is the four-time world champion. The guy who's supposed to be winning, the guy who just got praised by Mercedes as the early favorite, and he hates it. That should terrify the FIA, because if Max Verstappen can't find joy in driving the fastest cars on Earth, what does that say about the sport Formula One just became? Let's rewind to Wednesday, Bahrain testing, day one. Toto Wolff stands in front of cameras and declares Red Bull the benchmark, says their energy deployment is a second per lap faster than everyone else, says Max looks unstoppable. You'd think Max would come to the press conference on Thursday beaming, ready to talk about how great the new car feels, how exciting 2026 is going to be. Instead, he torched the entire regulation set. He said the racing is less pure, that it doesn't feel like Formula One anymore, that drivers are winning by lifting and coasting longer, not by braking later or driving better, that you need a degree to understand how to drive these cars. And the kicker? He said maybe it's just better to drive in Formula E. That's not a compliment, that's execution. But wait, if Max is so fast, if Red Bull really does have a second per lap advantage on the straights, why is he complaining? Because speed isn't the problem, fun is. And that's the part the FIA didn't see coming. For months, Formula One sold 2026 as the future. Sustainable engines, closer racing, more overtaking. The cars would be smaller, more agile, more exciting. The new battery technology would create wheel-to-wheel battles. It was going to save the sport. Except nobody asked the drivers if it would actually be fun to drive. And now that they've spent a week in these cars, the cracks are showing. Lewis Hamilton complained about 600 meters of lift and coast per qualifying lap. Said fans won't understand it because it's ridiculously complex. Esteban Ocon talked about how following other cars isn't as easy as promised. But Max went nuclear. He explained exactly what's wrong with 2026 in a way that every fan who's been skeptical about these regulations will understand. The problem isn't the cars, the problem is how you have to drive them. In traditional Formula One, the fastest driver is the one who brakes latest, takes the corner fastest, gets on throttle earliest. That's racing, that's pure. That's what separates legends from also-rans. In 2026, the fastest driver is the one who lifts off earliest, who coasts longest, who manages their battery deployment perfectly over a 600-meter straight. That's not racing, that's energy management, and Max Verstappen didn't become a four-time world champion to play a fuel-saving simulator. He even admitted it. He said the tactics needed to be quick have fundamentally changed, that it's no longer about who's the better driver in the traditional sense, it's about who can optimize an electric powertrain better, and he hates it. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Max also admitted he knows this is going to make people unhappy. His team, Red Bull, the people who've spent hundreds of millions building a power unit specifically for these regulations. But he said he has the right to be critical if he's not happy, and he's not happy. That's a shot across the bow, not just at the FIA, at Formula One itself. Because when Sebastian Vettel criticized the hybrid era in 2014, he was a reigning champion who suddenly wasn't winning anymore. Easy to dismiss as sour grapes. Easy to say he just didn't adapt. Max doesn't have that problem. He's adapting just fine. Red Bull's apparently a second faster than everyone else on the straights. He's going to be competitive, probably the favorite. And he still thinks the regulations are garbage. That's so much worse for the FIA, because you can't dismiss it as a skill issue. You can't say he's just bitter about losing. He's winning, and he's miserable. Lance Stroll even joked about it earlier this week. Said if George Russell wins the Australian Grand Prix by 30 seconds, he'll say these rules are great. The implication being that any driver who's winning will love the regulations. Max just proved that theory completely wrong. He can be winning, he can be dominating, and he'll still tell you to your face that it's not fun, and he's considering other options. That's the nightmare scenario for Formula One. Because if the best driver in the world, driving the best car, can't find joy in it, what's the point? And Max wasn't subtle about his exit options either. He specifically mentioned the 24 hours of Le Mans, endurance racing, a series where you can actually race wheel to wheel without worrying about battery deployment strategy every corner. He's 27 years old. He's got a decade of racing left in him minimum, and he's already talking about where else he can have fun. Formula One should be panicking, because this isn't just about Max. It's about what he represents. He's the face of modern Formula One, the youngest champion ever. 4 titles, dominant, charismatic, exactly the kind of driver Liberty Media wants to build the sport around, and he just told the world he'd rather be racing somewhere else. The FIA can't ignore this. They tried to design regulations that would create closer racing, more excitement, better competition, and instead they've created a formula so complex, so battery dependent, so focused on energy management that even the world champion champion thinks it's anti-racing. That's not a minor complaint. That's a fundamental design failure. And here's the really uncomfortable part. Max is right. Fans have been complaining about lift and coast since testing started, about the ridiculous complexity of the start procedure, about how the racing looks slower and clumsier despite the cars being smaller and more agile. But when fans complain, the FIA can dismiss it. They don't understand the technical brilliance. They'll appreciate it once they see real racing. Give it time. When Max Verstappen complains, that's a 5-alarm fire, because he does understand the technical brilliance. He is seeing real racing, and he's telling you it's not good enough. The Barcelona test was supposed to be Formula One's victory lap. Look at these amazing new cars. Look how well they're running. Look how close the field is. Instead, it's turned into a PR disaster. The reigning champion hates the regulations. The safety of the race starts is under investigation. Multiple drivers are openly complaining about energy management ruining the racing. And there's nothing the FIA can do about it. The regulations are locked in. The engines are homologated. The season starts in 4 weeks. They can't just redesign everything because Max Verstappen isn't having fun. But they also can't afford to lose him. Because if Max walks away, or even just starts talking more seriously about Le Mans, about endurance racing, about finding fun elsewhere, that's a catastrophic blow to Formula One's credibility. You don't just lose the best driver on the grid, you lose the narrative. How do you sell Formula One as the pinnacle of motorsport when your 4-time world champion publicly says he'd rather be racing somewhere else? Red Bull's stuck in an impossible position too. They've just built their first ever Formula One power unit, invested hundreds of millions. It's apparently working brilliantly. They should be celebrating. Instead, their star driver is trashing the regulations it was built for. Christian Horner can't be thrilled about that, but he also can't tell Max to shut up because Max has earned the right to speak his mind. 4 championships, a decade of dominance. If anyone gets to criticize Formula One, it's him. And the truly damning part? Max knows he's going to make people unhappy with these comments. He said it himself, but he did it anyway. That's not recklessness, that's conviction. He genuinely believes these regulations are bad for the sport, and he's willing to burn political capital to say it publicly. That's how strongly he feels. And that should scare the FIA more than anything else. Because this isn't going away. The season hasn't even started yet, and the cracks are already showing. Imagine what happens after Melbourne, after 3 races of lift and coast qualifying, after starts go wrong and cause crashes, after fans watch races decided by energy management instead of overtaking. Max is going to keep saying it. Other drivers are going to start agreeing. The media is going to run with it, and Formula One's going to have to answer for why their 2026 revolution turned into a referendum on whether the sport is still fun to watch. The FIA thought they were building the future. Instead, they might have just given Formula One's biggest star a reason to look for the exit. And if Max Verstappen walks away because Formula One isn't fun anymore, that's not just his loss, that's the sport's. Because at the end of the day, racing has to be fun. For the drivers, for the fans, for everyone involved. If it's not, what's the point? Max Verstappen just asked that question out loud, and Formula One doesn't have a good answer.